And welcome again to Washington Unplugged. This week, how's the president doing on foreign policy, the spiritual side of Washington? And then we're off to the races, the submarine races, seriously. But first to foreign policy. David Ignatius, columnist for the Washington Post, one of the most influential voices on foreign affairs. And I would also add a first-rate novelist who is out with a new thriller, The Increment. As always with David's books, this is another page-turner. But David, let's talk about the reality, not fiction. So much attention on the economic situation in this country, now on health care. We don't hear much about foreign policy, but it's out there, and it's out there for sure. How's the president doing on foreign policy?
I think, Bob, for the first 6 months, the president focused on one thing overwhelmingly, and that was to change the image of the United States around the world. He felt, his chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, felt that the unpopularity of America in itself had become a national security problem. And so they set out to change this reflexive anti-American feeling that you found in Europe, you found in Asia, you certainly found in the Middle East. And they feel that they've turned that around. I think in general, they're right, that the world looks at America under Obama in a different way than it did Bush. Rightly or wrongly, George Bush was just a magnet for anger people felt towards our country. And I think that's diminished. In terms of the substance of policy, all the difficult things that he's got to do, the Arab-Israeli peace process, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, all of the tough decisions, I think, are still ahead of him. So it's hard to measure what he's going to do and what impact he'll have because the tough stuff's ahead.
If you were to pick out one of those four, and I agree with you, those are the big four, what is the one that requires the most attention right now? Afghanistan, Pakistan?
I would actually say it's the Arab-Israeli peace process.
Really?
Because I think the president is right that in terms of really fundamentally changing the mood in the world, locking that in, this remains for people in the Arab world, for Muslims in general, the key central issue. And I think Obama understood that from his first day in the Oval Office. What was the first phone call he made? It was to the Middle East, to President Mubarak in Egypt, to President Abbas and the Palestinian Authority, to Ehud Olmert, saying, I'm going to get serious about this. So the White House has been pushing a freeze on Israeli settlements. They had hoped by the end of July to launch a real peace process with sort of the fundamentals laid out by our negotiator, George Mitchell. That's beginning to slow. It's a little bit like healthcare, where there's resistance, there's delay, people saying, hold on, can we get this done as quickly as we'd hoped? And so I think that in terms of the president really pushing to get something done, that's still job one.
Is it your feeling that of the big problems that he faces, if he could make some progress on that one, the Arab-Israeli thing, that would impact on the rest of them?
I think that it would. I think in particular it would impact on Iran, which is the most complicated and potentially dangerous issue that Obama faces. In terms of really building a strong alliance against Iran, it's important to take away what's been the Iranian strongest issue, which is funding Hamas, pumping this Arab-Israeli dispute. I mean, they're milking it for all it's worth. It's a very opportunistic approach. And I think to the extent we can take that issue away, again, be in the peacemaking business, the Iranians will have greater trouble. I have to say, Bob, that whatever else you'd say about Obama, you'd have to say in foreign policy he's been lucky. His biggest potential adversary, Iran, has imploded after its election. Iran is fundamentally weakened now. And I think it's a moment of great opportunity for the White House to think creatively, how with this weakened and vulnerable adversary do we gain some ground? I'd love to see us peel away some of Iran's allies, peel away Hamas, peel away Syria, peel away even Hezbollah to the extent we can. I think those are things the White House is thinking about. They'd be bold moves. They're not doing them yet.
I'm hearing that that some of the people on the ground in Afghanistan are already saying we still don't have enough troops there. We may have to ask for more troops. I think it's a real open question as to whether Congress would go along with more troops, number one. But what is your sense of what's happening there?
I think you stated it right. I think that there was a big strategic debate about Afghanistan, and the president kind of came down on both sides of the debate. Vice President Biden is very skeptical about Afghanistan and about our ability to get any kind of military victory there. And in fact, the military wanted a commitment for additional troops beyond the 21,000 that they got. Obama didn't give it to them. He deferred that for later. And so it's still a question that's out there. Talking to General Petraeus recently, it's clear he wants more troops next year and more time to show that this strategy will work. But I think this fall you're going to see a real debate within the White House, put aside Congress, within the White House itself about whether this policy makes sense. Can we afford it in terms of troops, lives, cost? It's in no way a subtle question. That's an example of what I was talking about, that the tough problems are out there. What are we going to do in Afghanistan? We still don't really know.
All right, David Ignatius, underlining that those problems are out there. We may be talking about other things, and because we have to, because getting the economy right in this country is the basis of our ability to
if he
succeed
fails
in
on
anything.
that, his ability to do anything on foreign policy is zero. So he's got to focus.
But having said that, there are some big problems overseas.
Yes,
David
sir.
Ignatius, thank you, and good luck with your new book, The Increment.